Toastmasters, talented Toastmasters.
I don't know about you, but sometimes when you sit down to write a speech or do any kind of writing, the worst thing in the world is when you're looking at just white. It doesn't help you. It doesn't give you any ideas. What do? Cry. Maybe you have the opposite problem. Maybe it's like playground. And it's just before the bell rings and there's no children in the yard. And then you say, I'm going to write a speech. And you get absolutely flattened by all of the ideas running straight out of your brain into the keyboard. And they don't make any sense. Ladies and gentlemen, each of us has a river of story within us. The trick is learning to listen to it, learning to engage with it, learning how to bring it out of ourselves. I find sometimes when I talk to people that is the single biggest pain that they have. They don't know how to talk about what is on their hearts. Or worse, they try and it falls flat. People don't engage with it. And they think, my gosh, if I could just do what that person does on the stage, if I could just find the eloquence, I could really tell them what's in here. We're going to play with that today. And I'm going to give you 3 simple tools. We're going to talk about anchoring, and I'll lead you through a little exercise. We're going to talk about naming the voices in our head. No, we're not crazy. We're going to label them with letters, very simple. And finally, we're going to do a right hand, left hand exercise. You're going to notice that on the seats when you came in, there was a piece of paper. Please feel free to use that for notes. On the first side, I broke it into 3 parts. If you're like me and you have to write on everything, I do have extra paper up here. You can also turn the paper over on the back, and there's a whole blank sheet of paper for you. So anchoring. If you're willing, go ahead and close your eyes. You don't have to, but if you feel comfortable, close your eyes. I want you to just notice where your body is. Where are your pinky toes? Where is your ring finger? What's the quality of your breathing like right now? Just notice. You don't have to change anything. And as you're doing this, I want you to think of your favorite place. It could be a room, be somewhere outside in nature. It could be by yourself, with loved ones, with your pets, without your pets, wherever that place is for you. And as you're there, I want you to look in front of you. What do you see? What do you hear? Are there any aromas in the air? Do you notice any taste present? Maybe toothpaste? Or did you just eat a meal? Maybe you're chewing gum. Look to your right. Look to your left. Remember to look above you and below you. And when you're ready, open your eyes and take your notepaper. I'm going to give you about a minute and just make a list of what you saw. You don't have to do any narrative. What was in front of you? As you're imagining this, I want you to start to think about what could occur there. This is your favorite place. So imagine what you might be doing and make some notes about that. Imagine what it would be like if you were writing the best speech that you ever wrote in your life. And I don't want you to write the speech. I want you to write how it feels to know what you want to say. What does that feel like? Are you writing fast? Are you writing slow? Is writing maybe not your way of communicating? Do you wish you had a keyboard? Do you wish you could talk it out? What are your preferred tools? And if you get completely stuck, try saying to yourself, I'm listening. You know, when you talk to a really good friend, what do you notice? When you have something on your heart you need to share with them, do they tell you what's on your heart? Or do they listen? And they give you space? That's what this exercise shows you. Next, we're going to talk about the ABC, or the naming of those different voices. But first, I want you to use the middle part of your page and imagine you were going to give a speech about what you just experienced. Someone will say to you, what was the presentation about? And you're going to say, what? So start writing that out. You may notice that you have another voice that interferes. This doesn't make any sense. What is she having me do this for? I have to go pick up the kids after this. Oh my God, did I get the dry cleaning? What about my laundry? You might have another voice that says, hey, give it a shot. You might have a fourth voice that says, oh, I could talk about that time when Susie and I had that conversation and it changed my life. Those are 4 distinct voices. On the left side of your page, as you notice that voice coming out, just label it A, B, C, and you might notice them dialoguing with each other. So A might say, I'm going to write the best contest speech. I'm so inspired by that keynote. I want to do that. I want to go to the Bahamas. I don't even know how I'm going to get there, but I really want to go. And B says, right. You need to maybe give some speeches because she said, you know what? If you only do club roles, you're never going to get there. And C comes in. What does C say? So I'll give you about 90 seconds to play with that. If you get stuck, feel free to write. What I mean to say is, and start off in a different direction. No one's going to see this but you. "30-second warning. So I would love to hear what that experience was like for you, if you're willing to share. Would anybody like to talk about what they just experienced? How it felt for them? Or even what you wrote? Go for it.
I heard about my cat baby because when people disappoint me, he never does. And then the B voice said, well, your husband is going to disappoint you. He's a human man. And then the C voice came in and said maybe he could learn something from baby. And then the A came back and said, you're so lucky you have baby. It's unconditional.
Excellent. So what she's experiencing or relating is that she had a conversation with herself about her cat and then wanted to compare her husband to her cat. And the reconciliation voice came back and said, well, maybe the husband could learn something from the cat. And then realized, wait a second, I'm really lucky I have the cat because the love is unconditional. And I might even posit that D might say, wow, I just learned something from my cat.
Nice.
Would anyone else like to share? Did it? No. Yes.
My favorite place is a particular spot on the beach in San Diego, and I used to only live a block or two away from there. And I was just thinking about all of the life, the bacteria in the sand and the crabs and the gulls and the pelicans and the fish and the large fish and the small fish and the things that are there that we never see. And I was thinking how just being there is a moment in life where we're all participating and interacting in our own ways, and there's all these different threads of emotion going. This one trying to get a meal, and this one struggling to survive, and me hoping for sundown, and and this just smells. It was a lovely experience. I'd like to go back.
So Katie taught us about time traveling and location travel. Do you want to go? And then Richard, did you want to go as well? Okay. So you.
The power of going to my secret place along the Twin Falls hike. My daughter kind of pushed my granddaughter toward me and said, Zoe needs to get out. And so, of course, Grandma took her to the secret place. And when you gave us the moment, the opportunity to build the feeling and really be in it, that's my Tawanda place. So there are zero negative voices, and it was just free flow creativity.
Nice. I like that. Richard, do you want to come up here, or do you want to just belt it out from back there?
I hope everybody can hear me from back here.
Mm-hmm.
I had this mental image.
Bill Engvall tells a story of taking his wife out shooting that is absolutely hysterical. If you hadn't had a chance to see it, I highly recommend it. But that reminded me of that because there's a moment when they see the deer and they're there to be hunting, and he pulls out his gun and she says to him, "You're not going to shoot it, are you?" And that's like those voices that we get. They can be very angry sometimes, right? Yeah. Did you want to go? Please.
All right. For me, I didn't bring a pen with me. I have plenty on. But so for me, it was, I always tend to go to a cabin. It's not like a specific place, except maybe a place that's in my head, a fantasy place, if you will. It's a cabin in the woods near a stream, and there's also a beach nearby. But it's a magical place where I just can quiet my brain and sit there, unplug, and just think, create. And that's where my place is. And then I get those voices coming in about the workshop that I just did and how it was great on one side, the other side I didn't finish, that kind of thing. So it's all this, it's a lot of, different voices, as you say, in my head that are not even in the same space. So thank you.
Welcome. Thank you for sharing that. And I think that brings up a very good point about the voices that are in our brain. We are evolutionarily predetermined to look for negatives. This is actually a safety feature because a long time ago, we had to run away from hostile tribes, tigers, bears. Why do I think of tigers, lions, and bears? Oh my. But in modern life, we have different stressors, but our brains are still primed to be negative. And the more that we can do exercises to actually hear what our brains are saying, we can really learn about how to leverage those voices. The other thing I will say to you is if you have a very angry inner voice, They're kind of like a toddler or a teenager. Teenager ones are the worst. I don't know if anybody else has that in their head. The important thing is to remember this part of you is trying to help you thrive. It may not feel like it, but this part is saying there's danger here. There's stuff that's unknown here. We might get hurt here. And what do we do when someone is afraid? Do we tell them, shut up? You're being silly? Or do we hug them and say, it's okay. It's all right. It's going to be okay. And you can actually do that in your journal using the little letters. And you can be the voice of D and say, hey, it's all right. We're going to be okay. This was an iteration experience. Might not have been perfect, but I can do better next time. And we just heard a whole speech. I don't know about you, but that made me cry when she gave that speech about keep going. And I had no idea that she feels what I feel right before I come on stage. And she's a world champion public speaker. We can take a lesson from that. Would anyone else like to share one more? Please.
This might go counter to everything, but the first place that I went to, so I have a picture on my desk where I'm running a rapid. It's a class 5 rapid on West Virginia. It's called Pillow Rock Rapid. And I have on it, it says, find your happy place. That is my happy place. The reason I say it's kind of ironic is because when I'm on the river, I can't think about anything else other than being in the moment. And that's kind of actually the therapy of it, is that if my mind wanders and it worries about work or anything like that, you're going to get in trouble. And so it actually focuses me. And if I put something in my head when I'm starting, then it's funny how at the end you'll kind of have come up with some kind of resolution to it without even thinking about it. But during the moment, that's all you're thinking about is, am I running this rapid right? Am I in the right place and making the right move?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They call that moving meditation. Meditation isn't always stillness. And mindfulness doesn't necessarily mean that your mind is empty. I don't know about you, but when I first heard about meditation, all I could think about was, Om. And I have high anxiety. There are days when Om just doesn't work. What do? I lift weights. He does class 5 rapids. Am I saying that correctly? Yeah, anything that puts you in the moment. I've heard people say, I cook. Does anybody else do scribble drawings? Have you heard of this? I got myself some really fine crayons and I scribble with them when I'm really angry at work and it doesn't hurt anybody and I don't say anything inappropriate. It's terrific. I just use printer paper and then I rip it up. Do you know how cathartic ripping paper is? It's amazing. So these kinds of exercises, what do? They help us get more in touch with who we are. And why is that important? Because each of us has a story. How many times have you gone to a Toastmasters meeting and thought, I know what they're going to speak about, because you talked about the theme ahead of time. But then the minute they get up there, you're like, how did they come up with that idea? And then the next person will come up and it'll be completely over here. And you're like, wait a second. That's how we are too. I've heard lots of people tell me, I don't have a story. I really want to write a book, but I don't know what to write about. And I'm staring at a living, breathing human being who lived to a certain age with experiences that are not mine. Sounds like a pretty good book to me. We're going to try another exercise. Left hand, right hand. And I have to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I'm a novelist. I am not an image person. I make images. I'm an artist. But when I was preparing for today, my mentor said, you need to have images for each of the sections of your speech. I'm like, but I wrote the speech. And then we got to sit through a class with Omar, who said, we're not supposed to write the speech. We're supposed to feel the speech. And then I'm supposed to put a picture on it? The internet shall provide. And I asked the internet for right hand, left hand, and I was looking through all these cartoon images, and then I found, I'm not really sure what I found, but it's a right hand and a left hand, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you that are neurodivergent like me, you've even got little tiny hands you can play with. So hopefully there's enough hands. Now, this does require writing by hand. So if anybody is dying for a pen, let me know. I do have a couple extra. Just raise your hand if so. Eugene, okay, perfect. Give me just a second and I'll grab it for you. We have a dominant hand, and that's what we write with. Now, I'm old enough to remember when that wasn't necessarily an easy fact to sit with. And by that, I mean I went to Catholic school, and you got punished if you were left-handed. So if you have that in your background, this exercise may bring up thoughts for you. Feel free to write them down, but just be aware that that's what I'm going to be talking about. So what we're going to do is we're going to write a question with our dominant hand. Uh-oh. A couple of folks up here have done this exercise. We're going to write the question with our dominant hand, and we're going to answer with our non-dominant hand. And here's the question that I would like to invite you to answer, but it's like table topics, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't like my question, you don't have to answer it. Make up your own. My next speech is going to be about... My next speech is going to be about... And I'm going to give you a couple minutes for this. And if you get stuck, just write what I mean to say is... Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I'm sorry. What is the instruction?
So the instruction is to write the question with your dominant hand. And the question is it's not technically a question, it's a ... statement. My next speech is going to be about, and then you answer, what is your next speech going to be about with your non-dominant hand. And don't worry if the writing is like a spider crawled onto your page. I do. I do want to say a little bit about mobility. This may not work for you if you have arthritis or carpal tunnel, or that. She's got a brace on. And that is okay. The mechanics of what's happening here, we know that the brain has hemispheres. The right-left brain thinking has been disproven by some quarters. And I always get arguments when I bring up right brain, left brain. That's why I don't say that anymore. But what I have personally found is that I can ask a question with my dominant hand, think I know the answer. And what comes out of my non-dominant hand is completely surprising to me. Did anybody else experience that today? No, you did. Do you want to talk about your experience? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot.
Is that if I just progress?
Yeah, go for it. Belt it out.
So I actually
Does anybody else want to talk about their experience? Doesn't have to be earth-shaking. If it was like, bleh, that's fine too. Let me answer her, and then do you want the mic?
I have a person. When I was writing with my
So her question is, she learned to write with her non-dominant hand after an accident when she was younger. And so she writes just as easily with both hands. Not quite as easily. I actually have done quite a bit of work with my non-dominant hand because I have an interest in calligraphy. So I have found that the exercise still works for me. So it's what you're doing is you're accessing different neural pathways from the simple biomechanics of which arm you're writing with. And you don't get this when you use a keyboard if you touch type. Like I was trained to touch it, the QWERTY keyboard. So that's not mine, is it? Okay, good. My phone's back there. And then do you want the mic?
No, that's okay. So it made me a little more creative.
That's a really interesting point. She said that writing with her non-dominant hand slowed her way down, and she was able to actually access creativity. Am I reflecting that correctly? Yeah. What I've also found, I've kept a journal since, daily journal since about 2000, or no, 1999, and I've kept a journal since about 1986. And when you talk to other people that do journaling for a long period of time, one of the things you notice is your thoughts will slow down to the speed of the mechanism that you're using to communicate with them. So, for example, I talk very fast. My native way of speaking is about this fast because I'm from California and nobody can understand me. So if I answer the phone and I'm not thinking and I say, it's Amanda, people are like, oh, hi, Samantha. I'm like, So I've learned to say, it's Amanda. And I really had this experience when I was in Chicago because Midwesterners' cadence is much different than my culture of origin. So your brain does this too for you. So if you're communicating with your voice, what happens when you get angry? You start talking really fast and really loud. And when you're sad, you might not be able to say much. Your brain will do this with your body too. Even if you can't touch type. I watch my husband, he hunt and pecks, but he hunt and pecks really fast. He's a tech. How many other tech people are in here? Y'all type weird, man. And so I watch him because I was taught the very traditional secretarial, you stand up or sit up straight, and you have your hands here and da, 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 da. And I type about 120 words a minute. He does not. But he can get out his thoughts the same way I can because our bodies have become accustomed to the tool that we're using. So I would invite you to practice with this particular one just as an experiment and see what you get from it. Handwriting can make a huge difference in how you understand your brain. Is there anyone else that would like to share? Yes. Do you want the mic or no? I love that idea of using, did everyone hear the answer okay? Yes, perfect. You can also do, I wasn't going to talk about this today, but I'll do a very quick detour into what mind mapping is. Has anybody played with that? A few of you? Okay, so what I want you to do is in the center of the back of your page or an empty page, write down the word speech and put a circle around it. And imagine the next speech you're going to write for your pathway. And your brain already might be saying, okay, shut up. I want to write something. Good. Write that down. Draw a line from the word speech and whatever it was that your brain is saying, I want to write a speech. Now, if your brain isn't doing that, don't panic. I'm going to give you a cue next. What you're going to do is, what's your path? Your Toastmasters pathway that you're going to write in. Because you can use that to start to get to ideas. Now, for the left brain sequential folks that like to go A, then B, then C, then D, this will feel foreign. And that is okay. You can do lists instead. For those of you that are right-brained, this is a really interesting way to capture what you're thinking in real time. So I'm going to give you an example. So much. We may need the mic for the recording, so we're going to actually hold that. Thank you. So starting over, I'm going to write in the center the word speech. Now, you probably can't see it, and that's not what's important. What's important is what I'm going to do next. I'm going to draw a line over here, and I'm going to say my pathway is visionary leadership, and I'm just going to abbreviate it VL. And then I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to watch the speech that Baxter gave this morning on leadership and see if I might get some tips for my speech. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to write Baxter. And then I'm going to say, oh my gosh, wait a second. Rebecca told me about a really cool YouTube. So I'm going to go over and I'm going to watch that. And maybe I'll ask Rebecca for help. And so I have my visionary leadership here. I then have the next line and the next related line. Now I'm going to throw you a curveball. I really like the way I formed this letter. So I'm going to do a calligraphy project of a word cloud. And I'm going to talk about it in a speech. That's not related at all to my visionary leadership pathway, right? So it's going to get its own line. And I'm going to put a big giant G there. And then I might remember, oh my goodness, I'm a member of the Postman's Knock, which is a really cool eye candy site for letters. And she did a tutorial on botanical illustration. Wow, I could do that. And I could talk about that in my next speech. And then my dog really needs to get some training. And somebody told me about dog training. Maybe I should sign him up for a class. And then I could talk about that in a speech. Now, the left brain sequentials among you might be thinking that what I just did looked absolutely insane. And you'd be right. It's not left brain sequential. My co-author is a left brain sequential, and we have these conversations all the time because I am a right brain thinker. What's amusing to me, though, and what I would challenge folks to do, she would not listen to how to do a mind map until the day she came to visit me, and I was already doing a class on it. And I said, hey, you want to come with me to class? She's like, sure. She sat there while I was teaching, hiding her paper from me, and was writing all over it. And I figured she was writing lists, because that's what she does. We got in the car to go home. She showed me her multicolored mind map of our next novel series and told me all about how I should be using mind mapping in my work. So I'm on to you left brain sequentials out there. But that's mind mapping. So you can use each of these tools when you're working on speeches. And I'll go back just to my little list. Anchoring starts with your body, just like it sounds. And there's a reason I asked you, where's your pinky toe? So I would ask you again, where's your pinky toe? Where's your left rib in your shoe? Smarty pants. But I want you to notice what happened in the room when I said it. Did you feel the energy come down? It just did it again. That's the magic of thinking, hey, wait a second, where are my feet? Because they're a long way away. They're like 5'7" down there. And all you tall people, wow, you're even, especially if you're wearing heels, that's a long way off. It's easy to forget about it. But you can get to the truth of what you're trying to talk about by going through the body. That's one way in. So that's your anchoring tool. So if you want to try that at home, just remember, close your eyes, think about your pinky toe. Bonus points, write down which pinky toe. You got two. Are they talking to each other? Maybe they might have a dialogue. What would they talk about? You can open your blank document or your journal and talk about that. If that doesn't work, you can simply ask yourself, hey, what's my next speech topic? I went to this amazing Toastmasters conference and I got to see all these amazing speeches and I'm going to do one on, What does have to say? Is voice B? By the way, is spelled HMM. Write that down. Have a dialogue with yourself. Get to know who you are. And then finally, the right hand, left hand. This is super powerful. You can even use this if you're struggling to communicate with someone, or you're struggling because maybe you have a very important interaction at work that's coming up and you have absolutely no idea what to say. Could be your annual review, could be dealing with a really difficult coworker. You could always ask with your dominant hand, what in the heck am I going to say tomorrow? And then answer with your non-dominant hand and just see what happens. What do you do if none of this works? Try going for a walk. If you're physically able to, that can help. If you have mobility challenges, try moving your hands opposite to each other. This is called bilateral stimulation. And this can actually help your nervous system to calm down. So if you sit down to write and you're going to write the best speech of your life and your brain is like, nah, I'm out for the day. The walk really can help. That physical movement. Yoga can help. Taking a shower can help. All of these things that we allow our autonomic nervous system to run. Have you ever gone to drive somewhere, got there, and don't realize how you got there? That process, what's happening is that experience has become so automatic for your nervous system, you don't have to consciously think about it. Tying shoes. Does anybody still think about how to tie shoes? Yeah? I do too, and it can be a form of meditation. And if we have something that impacts our motor sensitivities, this really throws into sharp relief how important our physical container is for the brain. And I said it that way on purpose. In modern culture, especially in tech-centric cultures, we seem to forget we're biological entities. We're not just a brain with a keyboard. It's really easy to forget that. That's why it's so important to make a relationship with your pinky toe. I know you're laughing, but I'm actually serious. Are there any questions that I can help with? Yes, ma'am. And one in the back.
Question. When you were talking about anchoring,
The question is, if you're in a hammock when you're doing anchoring, you're not actually on the ground, are you able to ground? I would say absolutely, because the hammock is holding your body. And what happens mechanically is the muscles in your back and your legs and your shoulders can release into the hammock. And that can stimulate the nervous system, wrong word, because it's actually relaxing the nervous system, but it can cause the nervous system to relax. And that gentle motion mimics like when we're babies. What do we do when we have an unhappy baby? Do we just hold it really tight? No, we kind of rock it. It's going to be okay. How many people took their kids, if you have kids, on a ride when they couldn't settle down to get them to go to sleep? Well, my parents did this for me, and I fell asleep during a job interview. So be careful what you wish for, parents, because it might work too well. But if you're one of those people, taking a drive can help. Because how many times have you gone somewhere and you've had an amazing idea and you're like, gosh, I really wish I had some paper right now. You had a question back here.
how much of this
Question. The question is, how much of this depends on the size of your vocabulary? I would argue that it has nothing to do with vocabulary. And here's why. A lot of folks that I talk to think that in order to write, you need to have eloquence. And somehow we define eloquence as a whole bunch of 50-cent words. But if I came in here and I used the full force of my vocabulary, I speak 3 languages, I've studied English very deeply, I would lose half of you and you would get really frustrated because I would say things that make no sense. That's not communicating. So the objective here is to get to the distillation of what you're trying to say. And if that means you need to use big words, use big words. If it means that that's not how you think, and you like very simple, plain, spare language, like Hemingway, for example, you can do that way as well. Yes, Omar.
I'm more
That is an excellent question, and I'm really glad you asked that, and I'm going to watch the time because I don't want to go over because I have a lot of thoughts on this. This is definitely something that is asked in a lot of writing communities because some of the most popular AI programs were created and trained on stolen material, both from artists, musicians, and other writers. That's not to deny that AI can help us. What is AI? It's simply fast processing, right? It's using algorithmic processing on the back end to be able to make what looks like very fast decisions. So what I think personally is that, and part of why I gave this speech today, we know from childhood development that if we have more than one child in a family, and one is so-called speech delayed, because maybe their older sibling is very talkative. And so when the younger sibling goes to say something, the older sibling says, Jimmy wants gum, Jimmy wants candy, Jimmy wants to go to school, Jimmy wants to do XYZ. And Jimmy doesn't learn to talk. This is a problem. My concern is that we need to be very cautious when we are using tools to draft what we want to say from our heart, because it's a very common instinct to trust other people's words over ours. This is not to say that AI is bad by any means. I'm in the wrong place to do that, and I get that. And it's actually, I had a very interesting conversation with a friend of mine who's an academic and a fellow author. And I was very anti-AI in the beginning, because it's based on stolen material, et cetera, et cetera. And she said, well, Amanda, I'm in a University of California. She's at San Diego. I have to understand AI because students are using it. And if we don't understand it, the only people that will use it are bad actors. And I had no answer for her. So I don't have a good answer yet on what it will do to the publishing industry, other than to say submissions for magazines, novel publishers, agents, et cetera, have gotten glutted with fake AI submissions. And my works actually got stolen by Meta. There's a very interesting Atlantic article about that. And a lot of us were swept up in that. So are there negative things? Yes. What I would say is that these are parallel. They don't need to be combative. I think that this sort of tool that I'm teaching today is actually even more critical in the age of AI, for the simple fact that Jimmy will never learn to speak if we don't let him learn how. The other point I want to leave you with today is that drafting and editing are mutually exclusive. You cannot edit while you are writing. Give yourself the grace to create a crappy first draft. It could be the worst first draft in the history of first drafts. I will tell you that my first novel submission, we did it in a pitch appointment, and they tell you all sorts of stuff. I'm sure you guys have heard it because we hear it in Toastmasters. Have your elevator speech. Knock them dead in 30 seconds or less. Know what you're going to talk about. I did none of that. I was at a cocktail party, and my friend says in her very loud voice from the kitchen to the editor that I was supposed to pitch to the next day, my friend is here and she's terrified. Will you go talk to her? I couldn't get to the door because there were a bunch of people between me and the door. So I said, hi, I have a novel, and I'm supposed to have a pitch. And she's like, yes. She's very kind. When I walked in to do the pitch, the room was like 4 times the size of this, and there was one table in the back with her. And I had to walk down the whole gauntlet, get to her. I was so calm by the time I got to that. No, gosh. So what's the takeaway from that? Rough drafts work. We landed that contract. The book came out 18 months later. You could do everything wrong. One of the most inspirational speeches I ever heard was a guy named Lee Dimmitt in San Jose. He was horrible when he started. He would hold on to the lectern like it was going to fly away. He was afraid to look at anybody. And when he gave his final speech, back then it was the inspirational speech in the CTM manual. And we're like, how's he going to inspire us? There was not a dry eye in the room, because what he said was he survived a quadruple bypass. And the reason that he did was he had to come back and finish his Toastmasters path. Rough drafts count. Where's your pinky toe?
Toastmasters, talented Toastmasters.